This is my testimony to Jesus Christ. It all starts at the end of my freshman year. There was this girl in my culinary class who I liked, but I was too afraid to make a move on because I thought she was out of my league and she was a little older than me. And at the same time, I was dealing with rising tensions at home within my family because of my parents arguing. Now, all of these things were happening, but my life was still good. I still had friends, I still had things to look forward to, I still had sports, and overall, I was still living a good life. However, these things were enough to make me question who I was, and it caused me to start having thoughts of suicidal idealization. If you don't know what this is, basically, it's thoughts of killing yourself in your head, and for me, they were happening constantly. They were always happening, and I didn't know why. I didn't want to do that. I still thought I had a good life. They just were constantly happening. This led me to chase self improvement. And self improvement is the idea that you can improve yourself through different things. I thought maybe if I can just improve my looks, get stronger, get smarter, become more attractive, all of these different things, that eventually it could fix all of my problems. But also, I was a young kid, so I think I was really looking for meaning, looking for the truth, looking for what I was supposed to do with my life. And being that age and having this girl that doesn't care about you, and even though you really like her, it would cause me, and that was part of my motivation to constantly do these things, along with the fact that I was dealing with these thoughts that weren't mine. And looking back on it now that I'm closer to Jesus, I honestly think it was a demon or something like that, just something that was evil or from the demonic realm, because eventually I was able to get to the point where the suicidal thoughts didn't bother me. However, it would play different cards that it had up its sleeve. Anything that I didn't like or anything I thought was stupid, it would tell me that I am that. It would give me doubt. And I remember I was playing baseball at the time. I would be pitching, and it would tell me, you can't do this, you can't do this. So basically, it was just an opposition to my entire life. It was telling me to kill myself. It was telling me I was things I wasn't. Anything it could do to get under my skin and to prevent me from making progress in any aspect of my life, it would do that. And it got so bad to, I thought, you know what, maybe I should fast, because I remember I was reading the Bible just because I was looking for answers. I wanted anything. And where I'm talking about right now is the summer going into my sophomore year. So I just got done with my freshman year. I was too afraid to ask that girl out, so I was just weightlifting. I was doing all of these things to continue to try and improve myself, looking for answers. Now, back to fasting. I was fasting, and I thought, you know what? Maybe God will answer me this way, and He will take away my pain and whatever is causing me to just get these thoughts that aren't me, that is tormenting me. So I fasted. I read the Bible a little bit and I prayed. Key word there is a little bit, because I didn't do it the rest of the day. Because the purpose of fasting is to remove distractions and to give you clarity so that you can actually hear God and spend time with God. The problem was I was not spending time with God. I literally just decided to watch TV and scroll on my phone the rest of the day. So that didn't help. And after that day, I was like, wow, is God not even real? Does He not care what I'm going through? Because my current relationship and understanding was zero. All I thought was that fasting would cure me, because I saw in the Bible, if you fast, God will reward you and He will see that you need His help. But that didn't work. Now, going into my sophomore year, my life was still good. I was able to manage my thoughts better. However, I was still having them. Now, sophomore year in the beginning half, the first half was pretty good. There was this one moment where I actually asked out a girl in my class, and she was more of a popular girl. However, I feel like we were kind of connecting, so I shooted my shot, and it worked. I got her number. However, there was one night, it was my birthday, and I just hung out with my friends, and I was by myself, about to go to bed. I texted her. She texted me back actually like 5 minutes later. However, I got this feeling and something didn't feel right. If you're Christian and you have been for a little bit, you know that feeling of conviction that you get from the Holy Spirit that is like, hey, you should do this for God because it's part of what He wants you to do. It's His will for your life. Or like, hey, you shouldn't do this. You know you shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. This is unrighteous. And it was that similar feeling. However, I had zero relationship with God. I didn't care what He thought. I kind of just thought, yeah, He controls everything, but we're separate. You know, I'm doing my own thing, He's doing His own thing. And that feeling was very, very strong. I don't know why. And looking back on it now, I realize that it might have saved me. You know, going through this video, you'll see I've been going through a lot of struggle, but I think it did save me from God, from the devil, and from just evil things. I'm not saying that woman was bad at all. She was nice, but it was just the people that were she surrounded herself with. They were just not righteous that much. They weren't very Christian. And I wasn't even Christian at the time. I grew up in the church, but I didn't care, right? It's like, oh, everyone grows up in the church, but we don't care. We just still do whatever we want. But that feeling was a very strong conviction. And I realized that thankfully that I followed that feeling. If I wouldn't have, my future and my just high school experience would have been completely different. I would have been partying, I would have been drinking, I probably would have gotten into drugs, I would have been vaping, I would have been fornicating probably. And thankfully, I didn't end up down that path. Now, I thought at the time, after a few days, I was like, what the hell? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I text her back? I could have been with her. We could have been having a great time and doing all of these things. And I could have been with the popular group and I would have been respected. And I could have been partying. I could have been having the time of my life, but I didn't do that. Why? Why didn't I do that? I had no idea at the time. I just felt this conviction of something is wrong that I've never felt in my life. So I just didn't text her back. I didn't move it forward. I didn't escalate it. Basically, I ghosted her even though I was the one that asked for her number. It's kind of a crappy thing to do, but I just didn't know what to do at the time. Now, after that, let's fast forward it a few months in the future. It's still my sophomore year, but it's more towards the end. It's becoming spring. And I was like, you know what? I feel like these self improvement things are actually kind of helping me in my life, you know, becoming more attractive, being better with my style, lifting more, becoming smarter, becoming more charismatic. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should make a channel and share everything that I'm doing. And that's what I did. I made a YouTube channel and I made like probably 100 videos until someone found out. But eventually, the two people I was very close with in high school, especially in the early stages, showed my videos to the entire school and it completely embarrassed me. I remember I was walking just through the hallway. It was the end of the school day. I was about to go on the bus, and a group of these people came up to me and were like, dude, I saw your videos, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what? You guys saw them? At the time, I didn't think it was a big deal because I just thought, oh, hey, maybe they'll like them. It wasn't until the next day that the entire time I was in school, my videos were everywhere. Every single person I thought was my friend was laughing at me. The two people I was closest with were playing my videos in class while the teacher was talking, while I was sitting right next to them. Everyone was just looking at me, laughing at me. And that went on for the entire day. I couldn't go a single place unless I went into the bathroom. That was a single stall, was the only place I could get peace and silence. I basically slept through the rest of my classes and just laid my head down on the desk because I didn't want to talk to anybody because I was so embarrassed. That was the most humbling day of my life. And the rest of my sophomore year just was pain and just shame. And I just felt like I didn't deserve to exist. I felt like I was an outcast. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. Even though I was just sharing my passion at the time, people will come at you for anything. to bring you down. And it was just the rest of that year I was alone. And then eventually sophomore year ended and it was summer. I spent that entire sophomore year alone and I was just humbled. Now, I was like, you know what? Fine. If they want to do all of that, that's fine. Even though I lost all my self respect, I lost my confidence, I lost all of my people who I thought were my friends, I lost my status, I lost everything. Everything I thought I had in high school was gone. I was an outcast, and people's opinion of me completely changed. I'm just that YouTube kid who's really weird. And this caused me to just be like, you know what? I'm going to keep going down the rabbit hole of self improvement. I'm going to keep searching. I'm going to keep grinding. And you know what? I'm going to come back next year and I'm going to show everybody I'm better than them. And then they're all going to love me. That's what I was thinking. Was it unhealthy? Yeah, it was unhealthy. So that's what I did. I worked hard, but it didn't change anything because I was still that YouTube kid. Because when you really think about it, summer's only 3 months long. Everyone is still thinking about that. So even in the beginning of my junior year, after all that stuff happened, everyone is still talking about it. Everyone still is laughing at me. Even younger people, underclassmen who were freshmen and sophomores, were laughing at me. They were laughing at me. And I was taking it. I didn't do anything about it. I had 0 balls at the time. I was just so worried about what everyone thought. So all I wanted to do was get everyone's validation. So I stopped posting videos. And yeah. And during this time, it was also the football season. I was just a bench warmer. I was a nobody. I was doing nothing. I literally was just another body to throw on the field for the starters to get reps and practice with. And while all of this was going on, school wasn't a safe place for me anymore. My family tensions were rising again. And what happened was there's a very traumatic experience. There's a very bad thing that, let's just say, separated my family, destroyed relationships in my family, and it's still impacting us to this day. But this was the moment that finally turned me back to Jesus. It wasn't a one night thing. It was just slowly like, I need something. I need somebody. I need just to talk to someone. I need something. And I didn't know what that something was. So I started reading my Bible again, looking for answers. And I finally started to feel something. I felt hope through Jesus. I felt comfort. I felt like my life still had meaning. However, there was a part of me that still wanted everything I lost. And that was like the opposite of what I was growing into, because these two things can't exist at once. It was my flesh and my desire to be with God. They just couldn't go hand in hand with each other. One needed to die. And I chose the wrong one. I chose my flesh because what I was realizing was I was trying to gain everyone's validation and friendship and respect at the same time while I was getting pulled away from that. And what I realized, it was hurting my progress in social aspects in high school. So I was like, you know what, God? I don't want anything to do with you right now. I just want to do my own thing and I want to gain the friendships I had back. And I was ignorant and I regret doing that. And eventually, I stopped reading the Bible. I stopped all of the content stuff because I felt like God wanted me to make content again, which was really the last straw. I was like, hell no, I can't do that. I'm not living through that trauma and having to get humbled and bullied again. I can't do that. I had too much PTSD. I had way too much trauma. So I completely stopped talking to God. I stopped praying. And I just went fully into just trying to gain everything I lost from people finding that YouTube channel. And now, this is all taking place at the end of the football season. It's November, right? The football season ends. It was a terrible season, not just for me. We had a terrible record. We were like 1-7. Now, I thought to myself, what's the best way I can regain all the respect, everything I lost? Well, maybe if I can start for football next year and we turn the season around, I will be respected. I will have status. I will be a popular kid. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. So I made a plan. I'm going to bulk and eat as much as I can. I'm going to gain as much weight as possible. I'm going to get as strong AF. And I'm finally going to become who I wanted to be. Now, I weighed myself in November or December. I was 158. I ate 5,000 calories a day. I worked out so many days, probably 6 or 7 days a week, until August. Now, from November or August, I was doing all of this. I was super consistent. I was the most dialed in I have ever been because I was motivated, I was disciplined, and I was angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at everybody for taking what I lost. And I wanted it all back, and I wanted more. And still in the back of my head, I thought, you know what? Maybe that girl I liked freshman year will finally notice me and I can be with her. That was also in my head. I wanted all of this. And eventually, I did partly succeed. I gained those 40 pounds. I went from 158 to 198. And now, I'm taking you to the end of the summer, beginning of my senior year football season. When I entered the season, and it was the end of the summer, all the coaches were respecting me more. My teammates were actually, some of them were impressed about how much weight I was able to gain. And I was really proud of myself. I was on my high horse, I had confidence again. Not the extent I once had, but I was feeling more confident in myself. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm actually going to get to start. Later down the season, we had these really good players already, so I didn't know how I was going to fit in. They wanted me to switch positions because they needed more people in the depth chart on defensive end, so I switched to that position. So it was kind of hard. I had to learn a whole new position in like a few weeks, in a few months, and I just couldn't do it. I was never that good at football, and I was never that good at learning stuff on the field like that. I took a little bit longer to learn that stuff. I just didn't learn that way, and I couldn't do it. The roster finally came out for our first game, and I wasn't starting, and I was destroyed. I hated it. I was like, why didn't I get it? I deserved it the most. I worked way harder than everyone. No one else even gained 40 pounds like I did. If you looked at my before and after photos, it was insane. I gained so much weight. I was so proud of myself. And to not get to play, it would prevent me from achieving what I wanted, which was the status, the success, the friends, everything. I wanted it all back. I never got it. Never got it back. And after I wasn't starting, I was crushed. Every practice, I would go there. I wouldn't try anymore. I didn't care. I came home and I was crying. I would just go on the couch and I would just lay there. Because keep in mind, I'm also still going through all this family stuff. And those two things together were just hard. I would just lay on the couch and do absolutely nothing until it was bedtime. I'd just go to bed. I didn't care anymore. I gave everything I had the one time I did. And I learned, you know what, just because I work super hard at something doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to get it. And during this time, my relationship with God was up and down. I still cared. I still read the Bible. I just didn't do what he wanted me to do, which I believe was making content for him. And yeah, eventually, I wasn't starting. And then I was in practice one day, and now I'm on Scout D. If you don't know what that is, I'm basically a just like third string guy. I'm on defense while the starting offense is practicing so that they can get reps. And that's my only role, is to help the starters get better. And I was in practice and I get a concussion. I hit a guy head on head, and this is like my third or fourth concussion. I didn't think a big deal of it because I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm going to heal. I don't have to play anymore, even though I didn't even want to play because I didn't succeed in what I was trying to do. However, let's fast forward to the present. This concussion is still affecting me. I have done so many different therapies. I've tried so hard. There's been nights I've cried, I've prayed, and I just didn't know what to do. I still don't know what to do sometimes. However, this experience and this sadness has led me back to God again. I think you can tell this is a common pattern. And I'm at the place now where I've realized that the intentions of me wanting to start weren't pure intentions. And I think that's partially why I got the concussion, not as a punishment, but the Lord used it to reveal to me what I actually needed to do and what I really need to focus on, which is I'm still in the wilderness season. And if you don't know what that is, it's just a time when God feels distant and you're just going through struggles. And that's what I'm going through right now. However, I've gotten better and I have to stay persistent, and that's just what you have to do when you're in this season when God feels away from you. Now, let's go back to my junior year, okay? After that traumatic family event happened that I mentioned to now, I have had several encounters, not directly with God, but just like spiritual things that have happened to me, and I'm like, what the heck? One, I was like shaking in my bed and I couldn't say anything. It's never happened to me before. And then another time, I've had like a similar experience, and there was a different time, two times that happened, where it felt like my spirit came out of body and I was rising up while my body was on the floor when I was sleeping. And I kept going up, and then eventually I crashed back down. And it was the weirdest feeling. I've had two different dreams where one where I felt like a demon was tempting me, and then there was this other time. This other time, I was just out of it. I had a doctor's appointment and things just weren't looking great. So I prayed for about an hour instead of just crying and cursing God. I prayed, I repented, and I prayed a prayer of healing over and over and over again until my mouth was very dry, and it kind of worked. I'm not healed, but I got a message from God, and I had a dream. First, it was where a demon tempted me, and then I went into my old school, and then there was just like a vent, and I walked out, and I saw like an angel in the sky floating back and forth, and then my eyes went black. I couldn't see anything, but I was like, wait, I feel like God is there. So I asked a question while I was in my sleep, while I was having this dream: what is my purpose? And he said, no, not yet. So this is what has really helped me understand I have to trust God's timing and to know that this is a long, long journey, and that there's different stages of your walk with God. And yeah, you have to trust him, you have to trust his timing, you have to be consistently spending time with him and knowing that he is going to prevail and that he has a purpose not just for my life but for your life. You have to know that, and you have to keep pushing forward. This is my full testimony to Jesus Christ. I hope it helped everyone watching this, and just know that everyone's testimony is different, and I pray that who's ever watching this, they just get some comfort and know that you're not the only one struggling. You're not the only one going through different battles with God. And know that he is there. He loves you. And the purpose of all of these things is to push you closer to his will for your life. And yeah, that's the video. That's my testimony to Jesus Christ.